Hello, how are you doing? Can you see? Got a new tattoo. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jan, and this week I am only gonna read Japanese translated fiction. So this is a reading vlog for the Sushithon that is happening on from Prisperus's Patreon. So it's Patreon only readathon, but it's fine, you know. I'm gonna share my reading week. It's a week-long readathon. For that week we've got some prompts and some themes, some points we need to win, and I'm going to read only Japanese books for Sushithon. Sushithon. That's so difficult to say. Sushithon. 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 I'm going to share with you my TBR, the options I have. I've got all of this in stock I can choose from. Let's get through them. The first one is called If Cats Disappeared from the Wild by Genki Kawamura. There's a cat on it. It's very short, so that's perfect. I'm pretty sure I'm going to read this week. This is about a guy that is basically going to die really quickly because of some disease, I think. This main character is going to make a pact with the devil to live one more day on Earth. But the twist is, if he makes that pact, the devil is going to raise the cats. So this is the first book. I'm probably going to read it. It's very short and I think it's going to be quite nice, interesting. Next I have The Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Again, this is very short. I'm very excited for that one. I've heard wonderful things about it. It's about this 36-year-old woman that works in a convenience store. Apparently it's very quirky and funny. Very excited for that one. I might read that. This is going to be read in a day for sure. Next I have The Cats Who Saved book by Sosuke. Yeah, that's basically what the title is. I don't know much more than that. It's The Cats Who Saved book. I like books that feature books and I love cats, so that's what I like about Japanese literature. It's a lot of animals themed books, or animals as main characters, or something related to an animal, and the cat is kind of a staple for Japanese literature. And another cat. Next, this is the French version of The Guest Cat by Takashi Hiraide. I don't really know what this is about. So this is apparently a couple that is moving into a new house. It's kind of an old house that has a beautiful garden, and there's a cat visiting at that place. Probably was living there before they moved in. And this is a story of this couple with a cat. Apparently very beautiful, a lot of nature, all the good stuff that Japanese literature is good about. Writing beautiful things about nature, and it's probably quite poetic, philosophical probably. So it's also really short. I've got the French version, but that doesn't matter because it's not the original, it's not in Japanese, it's translated, so whether it's in English or French, it doesn't matter really much. But it's a guest cat. In French it's called Le Chat qui venait du ciel, the cat who came from the sky. Well, the English translation is more accurate than the French translation of this title, because in Japanese it's Noko no Kyaku, which is basically the guest cat. So it should be the guest cat and not the cat who came from the sky. So weird. Anyway, this is extremely short as well, so loving that for a readathon. Next, I don't think I'm gonna read that one because I'm gonna keep it for the winter, but it's called The Forest of Wool and Steel by Natsume Ashita. So I'm not exactly sure. This is about a small town in Japan, in kind of a mystical story. This main character that goes to the forest and is trying to learn piano. Probably he's gonna have a master or teacher, and it sounds very beautiful. I don't think it's only about learning about piano, it's probably about learning about life. Really looking forward to it, but I don't think I'm gonna read it this week. But who knows, it's in my options. Next I have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is fantasy. Again, there's a cat on the cover. It's by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is about time travel. It's a special magical cafe where people get a cup of coffee, and before the coffee gets cold they can actually travel somewhere in time. I love the idea of a coffee shop that helps people to travel in time. I've heard really good things about it as well. There's a second volume, I think, but the cover is not is like yellow. This is a blue one, so I think it's the first one. But very excited about this. I might read it. It's a tiny bit longer, but still very short, so I have good hopes I might get to it. And finally, I have Clara and The Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. Not at all intimidating. I've talked about in my haul from Yelp. This is about artificial intelligence and some kind of robot, I think, that is waiting for someone to buy that robot. I think we are following this book through the perspective of that robot. So it's probably a very interesting, maybe dystopian look onto modern society and just the meaning of what it means to be alive, maybe, or having conscience or whatever, making friends. I don't know if I'm gonna read it. I think it's a bit too long. If I read that one, I wouldn't be able to read as many books. So I don't think I'm gonna put that one on my priority for this week. These are my options. Let's read some Japanese literature for the readathon. I am joining the team, the Maki team, which has as a leader Jess. I'm gonna put her Etsy shop that you can check out. It's really nice. I am gonna be using her bookmark that she made, and I got it from her Etsy shop. So this is gonna be my bookmark for the week. For the Maki team, let's read some Japanese literature for the Sushithon. I'm starting with that. Let's go. So I've literally just finished this book. Are we gonna dress my hair? Yeah, I'll just went to the hairdresser today. So it's short. Anyway, I just finished this book and it was actually really good. I don't know if I give it 5 stars. I think it's a 4 or 4.5. Only because it didn't blow my mind away, but it was really good. Because I lived in Japan for 3 years, I loved it. All the convenience store life was very nostalgic. I enjoyed seeing all the little details about what makes a convenience store so convenient in Japan, and also the societal subjects and critiques and problems are really relevant in Japan and everywhere else in the world. But in Japan, these problems are actually really still present, even in 2022. Expectations about what it means to be an adult and a woman, a man in society in Japan is quite harsh. And I mean, it's quite short, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's very relevant, and I think it works so well internationally because it's also subjects that everyone can feel living in society as an adult. And as someone that works in a cafe at the moment, I relate a little bit to some of it. It's like, I've been working there for a year now, and I feel like if I was to work there my whole life, society would look at me differently. I don't really like the comments that they put on the cover. Irresistibly quirky, hilarious. I couldn't put it down. Like, it's not really hilarious. Like, it's not quirky. I have a feeling that she might be neurodivergent, and it's weird and funny. That's not a right comment for this book. This was actually quite deep, and it was denunciating how unfair the expectations are about being a human in society. What even is society? There's one quote I really like. I was beginning to lose track of what society actually was. I even had a feeling it was all an illusion. So it's really good. Please read it. It's very short, even though it's very international now. If it is really Japanese, and you need to look at it in that way, but it speaks to everyone. If you like Japan, if you like convenience store, 7-Eleven was my life in Japan, so I really enjoy this as well. And on to the next book. finished The Guest Cat. I don't really know what to say. This was what was basically on the blurb. It was very Japanese in the way that it is quite contemplative and nothing happens, but you're all there for the vibes and inner monologue of this author slash narrator, and it was quite cute. It was quite relaxing. I had the French translation and I feel like some parts of it were quite bad. I don't know if it's the same in English, but some of it didn't feel that it was French, where usually when you translate something into another language, you try to make it a little bit fitted to the language, I guess. But it was, I could feel the Japanese in there being not making that much sense into another language, because Japanese is very unique. I would be interested actually reading it in Japanese and in English, but I honestly don't have the strength for it. It was fine, but yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And then it was this story about this couple moving into this very old house and renting this part of the house, and having kind of a little story with that cat that comes to visit them. Is a neighbor's cat, and there's something on the screen. Yeah. Then I also read, what is it called? The Woman in the Purple Skirt by Natsuko Imamura, translated by Lucy North. I listened to it on the audiobook. It was actually really short. It was 4 hours, but because I was listening to it in 2 times speed, it took me 2 hours to read it. Some people compare it to The Convenience Store Woman. I think they only compare it because of the work setting that it takes place in, and how it is quite contemporary working culture in Japan. But the book, The Woman in the Purple Skirt, is very different, because you actually read the book through the point of view of her stalker, the woman in the yellow cardigan, something like that. She's the stalker, and she is writing about this woman with the purple skirt working in this cleaning company at this hotel, and it's kind of a thriller, I would say. It's very short, so if you like vibes, thriller vibes with the atmosphere, stalky vibes. So the thing that made it thriller is the undertone of, you are reading through the perspective of this stalker, which it makes you kind of comfortable. It was just fine as well. I gave it 3 stars. It was not exactly what I was expecting, because I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting really. What I liked was that they were sometimes using some of Japanese, some of the like not famous but like staple sentences. They would also write it in Japanese and quickly translate it into English right next to it. But I enjoy that, keeping that part of the Japanese, for example, irashaimase or like ohayou gozaimasu or something like that. Simple things that I think makes the book more Japanese, or like I think there's like Hirashi-san or stuff like that, where it does make sense to just keep it. I appreciated that. Also, I don't know if it's the same in English, but in The Guest Cat, they keep actually a lot of words that are used specifically in Japan that could not be translated really. For example, noren, which is this thing that is hanging from the entrance of a store or restaurant. In Japan, they've got this like fabric thing that you go through to get into the restaurant, then makes you bow basically, type of thing. Well, noren, we don't really have that in translation in English or in French, so they would just put like a little reference and footnote to explain what it was, and they did that with quite a lot of things, not a lot of things, but some important words that needed to be in Japanese and make sense in Japanese, and not translating it and just putting an explanation at down. And I appreciate that for translated fiction, because some words in other languages just cannot translate, and it's better to just keep it and just explain the meaning of it rather than just making up another word that wouldn't fit correctly or wouldn't make justice to the original work. So these are the 3 books I've read. And oh yeah, I actually this week went to buy more Japanese books. Yeah, I went to Waterstones and I was just, because I was reading Japanese books, I was in the mood, okay, for Japanese literature. So I want to pick up other ones. I want to pick up Sweet Bean Paste by Dorian Sukigawa. And apparently it's very cute. It's about this guy that just comes out of prison and then he comes and work at his shop with his grandma and whatever that makes dorayaki, kind of a Japanese pancake that is filled with like this sweet red bean paste. It's very good. You know, that's like Japanese vibes. That's what I like about Japanese literature. And stuff, I feel like a lot of the translation that we get from Japanese into English onto Western languages are these type of books, because that's what is expected for us to read when we pick up a Japanese book. It's all about ambient, sweet slice of life that you just here to enjoy the journey and not really try to have a fast-paced action thing. I feel like a lot of books that we get translated are actually like that from Japanese, but some of them are also different. So I picked up the The Dikegun House Murders by Yokito Ayatsuji. This is a thriller, a murder mystery, and apparently it's kind of a staple on the murder mystery genre. It's a bit like And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It's about these students that get to this island. They're kind of like a club that enjoys murder mysteries, and they decide to get to this island and talk about their favorite murder cases, like real murder cases, like true crime stuff. And unfortunately, that trip actually turns out to become a murder mystery in itself. So it sounds very interesting, and I'm very curious to see how it is executed, and from a Japanese author, and I love that cover. So I think I'm gonna have a part 2 for this. And I am also reading Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. I am listening to this right now, and I will wrap this video today. Oh, did I say it's all over the place, man? You know, the girl with the purple skirt also gave it 3 stars. I will remind you of everything at the end of this. I'll see you when I finish Heaven.
Wanting to communicate for the first time in forever, I had written her a letter.
I finished Heaven, and I need to process things. I was not expecting that. I don't think I was ready for it. This book, I really don't know how to rate it, how to process it. So just so you know, this, I didn't know, but this book is about bullying, and bullying in school, specifically young teenagers. So check out the content warnings for it. There are a few of them. I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm not going to exactly say what the content warnings are, because it could maybe spoil some of the things that happened. But yeah, anything related to harassment and all the nasty things coming with it, you should check them out before getting into it. This boy that one day receives a letter on his desk asking to meet. He goes to the meeting, and it's actually a girl that is also being bullied, and so they start this friendship. It's quite hard to rate this book because it was quite short, and I don't know if it's meant to be for young adults, if it's YA or if it's adults. Some of the content, what happened, is quite shocking. I mean, it's quite a little bit graphic at times. There's some sexual references as well. So I don't know if it's adult or YA, because it felt a little bit YA at points. But then some scenes were not quite appropriate for young audience. So I don't know where to put this. And I don't know if for Japanese literature, maybe if it's into YA, maybe that's okay. To show the crudeness of bullying, as it is quite bad in Japan. The reasons for his bullying are I explained at some point by the actual persecutors themselves. Momo, and he's basically a psychopath. Like, what he says to justify what he's doing is straight up psychopathic. And he's the most nihilistic guy ever, just saying that basically he does it because he can and because he wants to. And then there's this comparison between bullying and watching porn, where a dad would never let anything like that happen to his daughter. He would never let his daughter being filmed online, spread her legs online. But then they're okay with watching other daughters do it. So like some of the reasons for the bullying was that he would never let something like that happen to his sister. But because he can, it doesn't matter to do it for someone else, because he just wants to. It just feels like it. And for him, the feelings of the person that is being bullied is not his responsibility, so he doesn't feel any remorse for it. Some of these discourses about also like the meaning of life and why nothing matters and why everyone can do whatever they want as long as they get away with it, and now that's how life works, is a bit weird for a 14-year-old to talk about this and to talk about the meaningless of life. Some of these discussions were not really 14-year-old appropriate, if that makes sense. It didn't make sense that 14-year-old would talk like that. So in that way, it felt a little bit off. Like, I know the purpose of this novel is to show how terrible bullying is and how it can feel for some young people, but like at the same time, the language and discussions that were used were not necessarily like the philosophical concept about life and society was not age appropriate. I felt a lot of different things in that book. You get the message, but at the same time, I don't know who that message was for. I'm mumbling a lot. It's a bit late, okay, I just finished it, so I'm thinking as I'm talking to you. Yeah. So I'm giving it 3 stars. It was good. It was impactful enough. Some of the things just didn't make sense for the narrator's voice, as it was a 14-year-old. I feel it was a bit out of place. The same philosophical thoughts could have been delivered in a different way, but because it was delivered through this 14-year-old mind, it just didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it did make sense, but at the same time, maybe it was not the right choice. 3.5 stars. I just wasn't blown away by it. I'm gonna wrap up the video. I have read 4 books. This was a 4 stars or 4.5. I really enjoyed it. I had a really great time reading it. I loved the character. I love her neurodivergent mind, I guess. I don't know if it was actually neurodivergent person. Maybe it's not. I don't want to diagnose someone. I'm not a doctor or anything, and I don't know if that was the goal. But yeah, it's a lot about social expectations, Japanese society's pressure on women to be a functioning piece of society that contributes to the group, the country. Even if it's quite serious topics today, and also women to be a woman working and reflecting a lot on the value of work. Then I read The Guest Cat. It was relaxing, to say the least. It was short, and I felt immersed into this Japanese old house and garden and the little animals that come with it. It was a bit poetic, and there was like even some little references to European philosophy and like Leonardo da Vinci and stuff like that. And meaning of fortune was quite Japanese. The writing was very different from any of the other ones. It felt older. I don't know if it is. It's not, it's from 2001, but it felt a little bit more like Japanese language translation. The Japanese writing was a bit more complex maybe to translate, but this was a good time. And then these 2 audiobooks. The Girl in the Purple Skirt was a really small thriller, also reflecting on the work setting in Japan. It's quite of a, I guess, issue. It was just fine, to be honest. I was not blown away by it. I enjoyed it, but nothing a lot happened. But again, it doesn't have to, it doesn't need to be an action thriller. It can be more like about the characters and the mood and the tone about it, so that was good for that. And then the last one was also something bullying. So yeah, but I enjoyed this week, and I really like Japanese literature, just relaxing, and a lot of them are quite short. So definitely pick a Japanese book. They're usually short and peaceful. Not necessarily peaceful, but at least they're not crazy about the action. It's not about the action, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the characters, it's about the journey, and it usually tells you a lot about yourself and society and the world around you. This is my video for the Japanese week. I have a lot of other Japanese to read, Japanese books, so there's gonna be a part 2. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!